Okay, I'm still looking shit up. I don't know if I should be talking to nerd. I'll probably.
Welcome back, Mighty Vandals. Brian, the line you just wrote in the outline is already written 3 bullet points above it, 4 bullet points above it.
Awesome.
Producing in public there. We are Tubs of the Club, the Idaho Vandals affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. No brick wall Marten Heemstra today. It is his birthday, so if you are listening to this live or shortly after it's live on the 17th, go wish producer redacted Marten Heemstra a big happy birthday. Today, you've got our host, as always, Dallas Hammer, and brave, bold Brian Marceau.
Good to be here, guys. We came flying in as early as possible. So yes, we were still producing about 4 seconds ago, but this is just another episode, man. Like between covering men's basketball, women's basketball, and the football news that is relevant to Idaho, we've got a lot to hit on, man. So nowhere else I'd rather be, and I'm ready to get going.
Yeah, we'll jump right into Around the Boar. Ooh, that'd be tasty. Around the Bar, brought to us by Hughes River Expeditions. Brian, we're going to get to King Spud and the Vandal victory that we saw there this weekend, but that's maybe not the biggest rivalry news for the Vandals right now. The rivalry has been renewed. If you live under a rock and have not seen this yet, the rivalry is back. Governor Brad Little announced that the Idaho Vandals and Boise State Broncos are renewing their football rivalry September 6th, 2031. And while that feels like it's a long ways out, guys, it does take quite a while to build in those out-of-conference schedules, especially when you're working FBS and FCS. It's not like Idaho's going to load up 4 FBS games. It's not like Boise can load up 4 FCS games. So this had to come a couple years away. And again, 5.5 years away for this game. But Brian, your thoughts, the rivalry being renewed?
Nothing but good news. I know probably some more old school listeners they're going to feel a little divided on this because I know it's not a 100-0 proposition how you reacted to the news that Idaho is going to be playing Boise State, which will, of course, those games will be in Boise. However, if it happens again beyond 2031, we just know unless something tectonic changes in the next few minutes, project these games will be in Boise into the future. So I love it. I do want to acknowledge it's a big deal, but it's really fucking stupid. It's a big deal because these are two schools in the state of Idaho, and though we usually have a lot of reason to talk about Idaho's AD being a problem, this was 100% a Boise State problem that Idaho has not been playing Boise State, not just in football, but in all sports. And it's preposterous. This is a brain dead thing. This is a BSU problem. Fuck Boise State. But
and fuck Bob Kustra.
Yeah, the good news is phase one. Look, we know we want Idaho playing these Mountain West Pac-12 level schools. They're the same thing. Yeah, I know. But these are the type of bye games we want, right? These are winnable bye games. We've seen Idaho do it multiple times and almost did it twice in a year when Idaho won 4 games total. So, I mean, hey, if we're going to have these games, these are the ones I want. Mm-hmm. Second, Idaho gets $450K for a Mountain West game. That's a really nice payout for travel. That's not going to be that big a deal. Yeah. And I guess the other things, I'm not trying to steal everything here, Dallas, but sign me up for a chance to ruin Boise State's season. This is no pressure for Idaho whatsoever. A loss changes nothing for Idaho playoff wise. A win is huge for Idaho and completely would torpedo the entire Boise State season. So I love that incentive. But the part I am personally most attached to is this will hopefully open up diplomatic relations in other sports before 2031. Because in college football, man, 2031, that might as well be 2061. Like there's going to be a ton that's going to change in 5 years. I don't even know if this game will be played in the same capacity.
Yeah, it honestly might not be in 5 years.
Yeah. But between now and then, if Idaho can play Boise State in football, we can do it in basketball. We can do it in women's basketball. We can do it in the other sports. So that to me is the biggest win, is that now maybe since the ADs are able to have a very normal in-state school relationship with football, that can generalize into other sports, which to me is the biggest win between now and if that game is ever actually played. Because like, I know that the Boise State bullshit reasons are always like, oh, like, hey, Boise State can't afford to schedule Idaho, based off strength of schedule for basketball previous years. 1, Idaho's better now, so that's not the same. 2, again, fuck Boise State. Yes, you can. Boise State lost to a D2 team this year in men's basketball. If they can afford to lose to a D2 team in men's basketball, they can afford to play Idaho.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, you hit most of the things I wanted to bring up there. Idaho last year lost to a Mountain West A school by a field goal, lost to a Mountain West B school by a field goal. Like, and this is a Vandal team that again went 4-8 this year and was honestly disappointing in most aspects. Joshua Wood stays healthy, you probably go 6-6. Maybe we could light up all of last season, but it boils down to, man, a not great Idaho squad put some scares into, again, a Pac-12 school and a Mountain West school. 5 years from now, Brian, this might not be an FBS FCS thing, because the NCAA might have finally imploded. The Power 4 conferences will break off and do their own thing. The middle tier will do, some other form of college football. And realistically, Boise State's not getting out of that middle tier. Like the Pac-12 or Pac-8 or Pac-10 or whatever the hell they're going to land on as the new name for the Pacific Coast Conference. Yeah, they might be the best in that middle group, but they're still in that middle group. Idaho getting paid almost $500,000 to, again, take a quick hour-long flight, or not the best drive from Moscow to Boise, but September, it'll be great. Man, I can't hate this. Like, yeah, worst case scenario, Idaho goes in and gets embarrassed like they did every game for most of my life. Or Idaho puts some serious fear into Boise State and knocks down a bunch of those people a couple pegs. Hell, 5 years from now, Boise State might not be good anymore. Like, jury, I think, is still out on Spencer Danielson. I know that there's been, injury issues, and obviously Ashton Genty carried a shitty squad into the college football playoff, and then they kind of leveled out a little bit more last year. Who knows what's going to continue to happen with that program? But 5 years from now, man, I sign me up for getting another Vandal Bronco game on the calendar. Any final thoughts, Brian?
No, I think we're pretty straightforward. Then I actually do want to hit one thing. Christy Mayer in the comments section saying, give me a home and home for basketball. I'm on the same page. Now, I think Boise State is going to have the BSU stick up their ass, which is sort of a native thing. And that's not going to be possible. But I guess one thing, phase one, I need the games to happen. Phase two, if we can get something at the very least neutral to start with, like at the Idaho Center, or now, hey, this is never going to happen, but this is something I would love to happen. Philadelphia is famous for having kind of a round robin tournament of the Philadelphia schools in basketball every year. Villanova, St. Joe's, Temple. I would actually love if the state of Idaho could do that with BSU, Idaho State. I know it'd be weird for Idaho because we play ISU in the regular season, or in the conference season. But again, like now I'm going to bitch about Idaho scheduling for a second, and Idaho State too. Idaho and Idaho State play sub D1 games too. I will 1,000 times out of 1,000 take thrown away Evergreen State for an extra Idaho State round robin at the start of the season. Not going to happen, but if again, diplomatic relationships are now open, maybe something changes that we just haven't seen. And I will say it's not awful that Brad Little, governor of the state of Idaho, is at least invested in the Idaho schools playing each other in some sort of way. Not that that's going to create what I just described, but that is part of why I'm a little optimistic that, hey, maybe we can at least get more momentum forward in the other sports.
Yep, absolutely. Moving on, guys, Joe Begnal has finally been announced as the Idaho Vandals special teams coordinator, finalizing Thomas Ford's staff for the 2026 season. For anybody that caught that name, Joe Begnal, he was with Idaho back in 2022 and 2023. He was actually Thomas Ford's right-hand man as the assistant special teams coordinator, or whatever, special teams quality control, whatever the hell Idaho titles that position. But essentially, Idaho bringing back you brought the entire crew back together as far as special teams are concerned. Thomas Ford is in charge. Joe Begnal is now leading the special teams for the Vandals. Again, after being here in 22 and 23 as Thomas Ford's right-hand man. He then left for Michigan State in 2024. He left for Memphis. He was a special teams quality control guy at Memphis for 1 year. They won 10 games. They won a bowl game. Then he moved on to Michigan State, ended up as the special teams analyst there in 2024, promoted up to assistant special teams coordinator last year. Obviously, they have had a coaching change. Everybody got released, and now Coach Begnal back in Moscow, Idaho, where he's very familiar, Brian.
Yeah, Begnal seems like he is all in on special teams. So awesome for that hire. I love that Thomas Ford has familiarity with Begnal, where Begnal coached under Thomas Ford. So if there's a guy who Ford could or should feel comfortable about bringing into this position, Begnal seems like, I don't know how you get more comfortable with it. I mean, this is Idaho getting the best special teams I have ever seen Idaho football have were Thomas Ford era. So having both the special teams brains from that era back at Idaho football. And look, it was clear last season. Look, Neil Fendel, coach, he had safeties and special teams, two of the most underperforming units on the team, right? Mm-hmm. Now, differentiating which of those is maybe coaching, which of those is personnel, hard to do, right? But I feel that this is Thomas Ford saying special teams just has to be at a completely different level. There is no prayer that we are going to trust gradual improvement with continuity. We need a control Alt delete on 2025 to completely restart. Absolutely love that's his paradigm. If you're an Idaho fan, I do not know how you could possibly be upset with the lessons Thomas Ford is telling us he learned from 2025. You point to the unit that underperformed, Thomas Ford can essentially point to something that changed. What we'll see, like how much this changes, of course, that's a separate issue. We know not to overpromise in February of 2026, but for what you can do in the offseason to try to improve to try to relook at what happened in 2025, make it not repeat itself. I guess I love the moves Thomas Ford's been making. It feels like as a head coach, he has his head exactly where we would hope he would be, as far as, looking in the mirror and seeing what needs to change. And then you bring in Begnal, who's essentially looks like he is trying to specialize in special teams. This isn't a guy who's had other roles and happens to have special teams. He's been special teams focused for nearly half a decade now. So sign me up.
Yeah, and then on top of that, if you just go back into his resume, he's been an offensive coordinator calling plays. He's been a defensive coordinator calling plays. Yes, those are both at high school levels, but after he left that, he went on to be a special teams coordinator previously at Post University. Never heard of him. Obviously, pretty small potatoes there, but this is a guy who has been coaching for quite a long time, has been around for around the program at least for multiple years before, and like you said, Brian, just the focus on, hey, special teams was really rough last year. Time to get that fixed. So thrilled about that. Happy to see that the staff is officially, publicly, fully announced, and we'll see how that goes for 2026. So Brian, speaking of 2026, more changes in the realm of the Big Sky. After Beavis left Montana, and then 5 days later magically showed up, not being retired after all, and getting a new defensive coordinator job that I'm pretty sure pays him more than it did in Missoula. Well, little Beavis, Tim Houck, has decided to retire. Roger Cooper is following Beavis to Illinois. Mike Linehan is also following Beavis to Illinois. So again, some of that defensive coaching staff, that's both the defensive coordinators and the defensive line coach, that have departed. So who does Bobby Kennedy tag? Just like our wonderful Make America Healthy Again man, going for the off-the-wall pick that I don't think most sane people would have. Eric Sanders, the defensive coordinator from Eastern Washington, has now been named the defensive coordinator at Montana. Brian, your immediate thoughts on Montana naming an Eastern Washington defensive coach as their defensive coordinator?
Can you imagine how much you would have shit your pants if after Court Dennison left, this was the announcement that Thomas Ford had made?
I might have stopped being a Vandal. That might have been enough for me to just say, nope, punt on this era.
Yeah, pretty much, man. Eastern in 2024, I'm talking Big Sky conference stats. Vaunted Eastern Eagle defense, number 9 in scoring, number 9 in total offense. 2025 is one of their best defensive seasons in a minute, and that had Eastern as the number 7 total defense and the number 6 total defense. So 29 points was the best.
Brian, you're talking across the FCS, right? Like top 10 FCS defense.
Not quite. We're talking barely top 10 2024 Big Sky, dude. This is, look, until further notice, Montana is officially EWU East as far as I'm concerned, football wise. Good news for Idaho, because Montana if Idaho's going to move up, someone's got to move down, right? Well, obviously Eastern's not going to move down. They just lost the brains of their defense. Which actually that may be completely legitimate now, because Eastern's going to have to find a new guy pretty goddamn late in the season. And if the best Montana could find this late in the season was Eastern's guy, well, Eastern's going to be they're going to be digging pretty goddamn deep, right? So big win for Idaho, because now the Grizz have some real instability. Look, every team has roster instability, so whatever, that is a fact. But Montana, minus their 2 recent Houck hires, recent, over 30 years or something like that, has not really nailed their head coaching hires too much. So Bobby Kennedy as head coach has a lot he's going to have to get resolved between now and October, where if he's not going to, if Montana's not humming by October, this is completely resetting for the next year. But what I care about right now is 2026 Big Sky football. So the fact that Montana has instability they have not had to deal with since 2017, that's a win. If you're a team like Idaho, who feels pretty good about the changes you have coming into the next season.
Hey, I do want to at least point out, I know we're making jokes about Eric Sanders. Bobby Kennedy knew Eric Sanders before coaching at Montana. They both coached at Stanford under David Shaw, and David Shaw ran a pretty good program there for a considerable amount of time. They're also Bobby Kennedy's also bringing over Jalen Johnson, who was the Weber defensive line coach in 23 and then the Eastern defensive line coach in 24-25. So really just doubling down on that Eastern Washington defense. Again, maybe not on paper something you hear screaming out. Patty has obviously had his own things to do the last couple of years, but we've heard Patty say many things about the Sanders defense, not many of them positive. So pretty interesting for Montana to be pilfering from a mediocre Big Sky school. But hey, that's what happens when you're this late in the game.
And I know, like, you're talking about results mediocre for Eastern, like 500, sub 500-ish. Defensively, they're underwater. So again, I like put yourself in the Idaho shoes here. Thomas Forden's 2025. It's like, okay, let's hire Eric Sanders. We're all thinking like, oh my God, what are we doing? Yeah. And that's what Montana's doing.
Yep. So hopefully the Grizz fans, hopefully this ages just as poorly as we are all hoping it will. But I did want to hit another big thing in the FCS, Brian. So again, we've talked now. North Dakota State is out of the FCS. Bobby Hauck is gone. South Dakota State just had, again, they're under their second coach post first championship. Obviously, Jimmy Rogers led them to another one that was basically just the caretaker championship. So Dan Jackson, we're all familiar with, but we're seeing the top of the FCS changing here. South Dakota is also in a little bit of turmoil. Not South Dakota State, South Dakota. Bob Nielsen was their head coach. He was hired in, I think, 2015. Started rebuilding what was honestly a really bad program. Really, really bad program. Got a winning season in. Then they started to struggle again. COVID hits. They continue to struggle. And then at the very end of everything, Bob Nielsen brings in this defensive coordinator, Travis Johansson. They start winning some games. They get to 2024, and that's kind of when, they're 2023, 24, 25. They've exploded into being a regular top 10 team in the FCS. Well, Bob Nielsen in 2024 hires Matt Vitzthum as his receivers coach. Matt Vitzthum was the Grand Valley State University offensive coordinator before Ian Shoemaker was there. I just want everybody to keep that in their brain. January 25, Bob Nielsen retires. Travis Johansson, their defensive coordinator, is promoted. Vitzthum is named the co-offensive coordinator with the offensive coordinator that had already been there for years. Well, now, February 2026, Johansson has left for Rutgers and is taking much of their defense with him. They've already had multiple players announce that they are transferring. They've hit the portal. They're going to Rutgers. So we're seeing, again, that top of that FCS is starting to crater, guys. Matt Vitzthum is now the head coach at South Dakota after being named the receivers coach 2 years ago, having been a Division II offensive coordinator, again, the predecessor to current Vandal offensive coordinator Ian Shoemaker. So if you're looking at Idaho football thinking, hey, we're doing the right things now. We've got some new coaches in, some more experience. The transfer portal is hopefully going to be a little bit better of an outcome this year now that, again, it's been a full staff. There's been a full year of that staff, like putting things together rather than salvaging a transfer portal class at the very end. All of that to say, Brian, the biggest news in the FCS is that vaunted powerhouse Sac State has left for the MAC, Brian. Sac to the MAC. We are going to get the official BallSac Bowl when Ball State and Sacramento State play each other. Brian, I'm just going to rip the big Band-Aid off. $23 million on the sticker price with an $18 million entry fee to the MAC and the $5 million to the NCAA. That is $6.5 million more than North Dakota State is paying to get into the Mountain West. Your thoughts?
You talked last week about how North Dakota State's $17.5 million offer, like in your mind, that couldn't have been the best that North Dakota State had received. To our knowledge, it is, because you got to have an offer to leave. But still, your reaction there was the sticker shock of like, holy shit, 17.5 million plus your operating expenses are going to go through the roof. That's a ton for the best FCS program of the last 2 decades, right?
I would say of all time.
Yeah. That's for a program that has things absolutely humming, and they moved into a conference that you understand. Okay, well, that is a step up. You know, like if Idaho didn't have to pay $17.5 million to go to the Mountain West, right? You would probably say, hey, there's logistics to figure out, but big picture, you probably say yes, or you're happy with that news, Dallas, if I'm assuming, just based on how we have talked previously, right? Yeah, Sacramento State, that is not this. One, Sacramento State's absolutely not stable as a program whatsoever. Two, 23 million is catastrophic before you talk about the increased budgets, which will be significant. And I guess a couple of other points that to me just paint this as like, what are you guys doing kind of thing. This is a 5-year deal, which is to say SAC isn't just an ongoing member of the MAC. In 5 years, the MAC, it sounds like, can just say, okay, well, fuck you guys. Thanks for the money. You're gone. You're gone. That's not North Dakota State. North Dakota State's a member of the Mountain West. SAC is kind of a member of the MAC. They're going to be FBS, right? So that classification changes. But seriously, this is just a 5-year contract. And what else is included in the 5-year contract? Like I said, no revenue for 5 years. A huge one. SAC is going to cover airfare for every MAC team that has to fly into Sacramento State. That is projected to be an additional somewhere between $2 and $4 million upgrade. They're not eligible until 2028 for the postseason. They have to upgrade their locker rooms and visitor AD suite. And I don't even know if that's a separate question of like, okay, are they going to now be playing on campus and upgrade, or are they going to continue with the initial plan to go to Cal Expo off campus, one grandstand, essentially Portland State of the MAC? Never mind playing like Wednesday night games now that no one would be able to go to. Sacramento State already has right now, their athletics budget is $11 million in total, and they're paying more than double that just to enter into that. This sounds like a catastrophic deal. And separate option, Dallas, if you just told me the MAC is going to give Idaho an invite, they might have to raise the $5 million, nothing else but full membership. I don't think I'd want to be in the MAC. So yeah, I mean, like, I know listeners are probably going to feel different about that just because of that magical B that some people are truly attracted to. And if you are, that's your thing, right? That's fine. But the MAC is not a great conference. The MAC is not getting incredible exposure to all their schools. Dallas, how many listeners even know who the hell is in the MAC? Like, I know a few.
I doubt most of our listeners could name the full MAC. I don't know that I could name the full MAC. Actually, that's true. I could name the full MAC. Anyways, Brian, the argument from Sac State here is that their football game guarantees, their ticket sales, and the MAC TV deal is what's going to generate their revenue. Because, to their credit, playing on Wednesday on ESPN is at least a little bit more likely to get people's eyes than playing on Saturday on ESPN Plus. I'll give them that. They are going to pick up more eyes just from the sickos like me that are putting on random football games on a Wednesday night in October because I'm bored out of my fucking brains. With that said, I cannot imagine, Brian, the university has almost a $3 million deficit, and now they are going to have to essentially double their athletic budget to realistically survive. They have this insane sticker price they have to find a way to pay for. They are paying for travel. They're not bowl eligible for 2 years. They have to do these upgrades to their stadium. Again, we don't even know what the status of their project is at this point. And they're forfeiting all MAC revenue for 5 years and essentially doing what Idaho just did, a decade and a half ago with the Sun Belt. It was basically just, hey, we want an FBS home. You'll take us? Cool. Anybody that was paying attention to college football knew that was not going to last very long. The only reason Idaho got invited was for hey, you got to have 12 teams to have a conference championship game. And as soon as that rule was changed, see ya Idaho, see ya New Mexico State, you're gone. Man, this is just like actively writing hey, after 5 years, get the fuck out of here. Thanks for 23 million, or I guess 18 million plus the airfare. 5 years, 20 million, and you're not guaranteed to stick around after that. Man, I did not go to business school. I went to journalism school, but I can't imagine that was something that I would have missed in business school. That does not sound like a great deal.
No, and like some of the rationale is that Sacramento State is going to get a lot. Look, it's not just they're going to get media exposure. They've been open about the fact that, hey, we're going to get, some like 100 million in media, but like that is complete. Those are the type of numbers. And I just made those. I don't have the exact numbers. I'm sure our crack research team can find them someday. But like Luke Wood has been referencing that as part of the rationale for why SAC has to do this. Hey, top 20 media market, which that is true. SAC is a top 20 media market. But, the exposure dollars that they're talking about don't actually pay for anything. Like those are just completely imaginary. Like, okay, like sure, you get, even if your numbers are correct, which I absolutely do not buy in the MAC, that doesn't mean it capitalizes to actual revenue. Like that's a completely, it feels like those are numbers just for complete morons who are into this. Now, Sac State the problem Sac State had is they put themselves in a corner of being so nakedly ambitious about moving to the FBS. They had no options. No one wanted them. And the place that wanted them, they essentially had to beg and mortgage the present or in the future to be able to scrape in there for a handful of years. I guess the SAC end would be like, hey, now that we're in, we will have FBS legitimacy to maybe either stay in the MAC, or if other conferences who did not care about us earlier need members when something changes, now SAC has more legitimacy. Like that is probably not wrong to say. Does that equate to worth 23 million plus? It's going to cost way more than 23 million because of how much they're going to have to increase their athletic budget year in, year out. So like we're talking like what, 50-ish million probably sticker price over the next handful of years. Again, look at Idaho. We've already talked about how like Terry Golick would never, of course, plan anything in advance. But if this is the figures that we have to work with, thank God she does nothing extra in advance for this narrow purpose. If Idaho made this announcement, I again be like, what are we doing, guys? We're going to have Wednesday games. The dome's going to look terrible on TV with 15 people playing on Wednesday night. And I'm not even sure the MAC is that the top of the MAC is the MAC is better than the bottom of the Big Sky. I don't think the top of the MAC is better than the top of the Big Sky. Like, so even competitively, like, no, like virtually the thing that would make this a theoretical win for you is you just have to be addicted to that magical mythical B in FBS over FCS. Otherwise, this would be a non-starter for me for Idaho.
Like I love MAC, but the part of the thing with MACtion is the regional closeness of all of those teams essentially being in Ohio and Michigan, and the small stragglers in Indiana and Illinois. But it is a regional conference, which is going to sound crazy to the Gen Zers that I'm sure don't listen to the show. Conferences used to be based on your location, and obviously SAC is not that. I don't know, Brian. It just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Again, I think they were really hoping for a Mountain West invite, and that would have made sense. And again, if Idaho had a Mountain West invite, I would have never been on board of like, hey, it's probably time to go back to the FCS and go back to a place that wants you. I'd love to be in the Mountain West. I'm sure SAC would love to be in the Mountain West. It just, hey, it didn't happen. These dumbasses had to go find, their way into the MAC, and now they get to pay a very, very, very large bill. Brian, any final thoughts on BallSac State other than, again, just being so excited that we are going to get a BallSac game every year?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're also just done talking about SAC with a silent K from here on. I do want to hit one thing. Tom Kendall referencing in the comment section that, back in the day, Idaho joined the Sun Belt, referencing the geographic alignment. And I guess, look, hey, I'm not trying to put words into Tom's mouth. Tom is not saying like, well, hey, this is awesome. He's just acknowledging that Idaho did join a conference that did not geographically match with Idaho that much. One, I remember attendance from that time. It was shit. Two, Idaho was invited to join the conference. Like Idaho didn't have to pay $23 million and then pay to fly every single team out for every single game. And I say that because I was, again, at the time, I didn't like the Sun Belt as an option. And if you said, hey, let's do this exact same thing, Brian, but it has this price tag that we've gone over, complete non-starter. Like, no. If this is the best you can do, then you should just do nothing. Sac State could have done nothing, and they'd be, in my mind, in a better overall situation than they are right now.
Yeah, I would. If I were Sac, I would much rather be maybe not the top of the Big Sky, but trying to be in the top of the Big Sky, rather than giving $23 million for 5 years of FBS football that you don't even have a guarantee to continue on. I mean, after 5 years, it will be much easier for them to stick around as an independent, but we also saw how well that worked for Idaho.
No, independence only works if you have a natural built-in enormous fan base, which is pretty much Notre Dame. Look at the other schools, or Notre Dame and the service academies.
And BYU did it for a little while, but yeah.
But they bailed on it, right? If it was so great, BYU would have stayed. No, like obviously, like being part of a conference is what 99% of places need. Tom Kendall also acknowledging he was just talking about the geographic spread.
Brian, if you are looking for a great all-inclusive week-long vacation, don't look past your backyard. It's the 50th anniversary of Hughes River Expeditions. They've been Vandal owned and operated since 1976, and they're ready to take you on the vacation of a lifetime. Enjoy a multi-day trip down the Middle Fork of the Salmon, the main Salmon River of no return, the Salmon River Canyons, or the Selway. You could check out special trips like one to see the Perseid meteor shower. Camp on pristine beaches, run amazing whitewater, hike scenic trails, spot wildlife, soak in beautiful natural hot springs, and fish the most remote stretches of river in the entire United States. Just bring your clothes, let HRE handle the rest. Grab a paddle, catch dinner, and ride the bull all throughout the Gem State. Call them now at 406-540-4450 or check them out at hughesriver.com. Brian, we have some King Spud talk to get to because the Vandals finally brought home a trophy. It was a rough year in football. Did not get to see many of those trophies. But this year, the Vandal men and women prevailed and brought home King Spud. So without further ado, birthday boy Marten Heemstra live on the stage.
To me, thanks again, Dallas or Brian, whoever is doing the segment that lead me into this game. I am happy to be on here. Sorry I won't do it there live, but it is my birthday, and I had some other plans I'm doing tonight, so I'm not going to be there. But I'm excited. Like I said, I'm excited to be back on again, like always. First off, the women on Thursday, they won against. They beat Weber State 80-67. I'm not going to make that joke, but I know someone probably will. This game was really a tale of two halves for Idaho. If you guys just based off, if you didn't watch the game, you'd probably think, oh, Idaho won by 13. It's not a big deal, but that doesn't really tell the whole story. I think. First half for Weber State, Weber State probably played some really great basketball. I believe they led Idaho 46-44, I believe. If my math is 54-46, something like that. They outshot Idaho. They were shooting pretty much what we all know Idaho to shoot, which is really well. They went 10-15 from three in the first half, and it was a pretty close game. But I don't know what Art Morera or whatever the coaching staff said at halftime, but they turned it off. The defense turned it up at after halftime for Idaho, and they only gave 21 points in the second half, and held them to 2 for 12 from beyond the arc. Of note from this game for Idaho, they Hope Hassman had 25 points, which I think which is a career high for her. She did break the 1,000 career point mark, and also topped 300 career assists as well, I believe. So another really good game from her. Kira Gardner had kind of a lower scoring game, only 8 points, 6 rebounds, really good from her. Anna Panera had another really good game from her, only on 13 points, 8 rebounds on 28 minutes, which is really good. Another great game from Deb DeSantos, 15 points, 8 rebounds from her. We'll talk about it for the Idaho State game, but they are also both Deb and Lorena, had some really good games for Idaho. They had a really good weekend, I think, for them as well. yeah, it was a good game overall. A little bit, like I said, tale of two halves for Weber State. Really kind of, I won't say controlled the tempo, but really kind of held Idaho to some, really kind of showed what Idaho has to really step up when they needed to, and they proved that they could shut teams down when they wanted to. Going on to the Idaho State game now. This was the game I will be honest, I was a little more personally worried about, just because Idaho State, like I mentioned in last week's show, Seton Soboleski coach team seemed to always give Idaho fits. He's been doing better it's always been kind of those close games that you don't really know what to expect, but this game wasn't really close for it all much. First quarter was 18-16 at the end of first quarter, so a little close, but overall Idaho really controlled this game as well. A lot of notable players for Idaho have gotten into foul trouble early for Idaho, first notably being Kiera Gardner, I believe got 3 fouls in the first half, and really played, I wouldn't say conservative, but you could notice there was a little bit of difference, but she had 14 points, 5 rebounds for Idaho, and still was able to contribute even on four fouls. Of note, Laredo Barbosa had a really great game today. 15 points, 8 rebounds on only 17 minutes. Really good game overall from her. Hope Hassman only had 8 points today, 4 rebounds. So a little quiet game from her, but still you find ways to contribute even if you're not scoring points. You're still taking up defenders, blocking, giving those other opportunities for the other girls on the team to make plays, which they did. Deb Dos Santos it's like I said this last week, and I know Brian's probably going to mention it as well. Deb had another great game off the bench, 14 points, 8 rebounds on 23 minutes. They are really balancing. The coaching staff for Idaho is doing a really good job of balancing Lorena and Deb. Kind of when one gets a foul, they've been really just good balancing them so they can keep things, keep them healthy, hopefully for the most, doing a really good job most part of keeping them outside of foul trouble. There is the occasional stuff, but I mean, for the most part, they have been a really good job at balancing that. Yeah, another good game. They did bring, luckily, as I kind of dropped the lead here, King Spud is back in Moscow. Very happy about that. If you pay attention to social media, it looks like the trophy got a little damaged. I'm sure it was due to celebrating and not so many silly goose shenanigans or anything like that, but happy to have it back in Moscow. Happy to be able to hopefully see that trophy here in person here soon. Other than that, it was a good weekend for basketball for the women's team. The women's team, they are on 10 straight. They have won 10 straight games now. Their next couple games are against Portland State and Sacramento State. 2 different kinds of games, I'd say. Portland State, you'd probably expect Idaho to win like they saw in mid-January. Sacramento State probably is a little more scrappier of a game, but it is in Moscow, so I'm not thinking Idaho's going to lose, but it's a possibility. Sac State is always like when we played them in Sacramento a month ago. They were scrappy and really gave Idaho a good test. And for the rest of the season, it's looking pretty good. 4 or 5 at home. A lot to look forward to. 4 more opportunities to watch this team if you haven't already. Like I've said before, and I'll say it again. If you haven't had a chance to come watch this team, come watch them in ICC Arena. They are a lot of fun to come watch, and this team is very special. And I'll see you guys again. See you guys on the show. See you live again next week, hopefully. Peace.
Brian, now that we are back from our quick little visit from birthday boy Marten Heemstra, just to kind of touch on a couple things there. Again, Idaho on that 10-game winning streak, 12-1 in the year 2026, playing Portland State for Star Wars night, Thursday, 6 o'clock at ICC Arena, and then Saturday, 2 o'clock, Sacramento State. They did play Sacramento State and Portland State at the end of January. They beat Sacramento State 62-55 and Portland State 84-66. Both of those obviously on the road, Brian.
Yeah, Portland State is terrible, so that should be a walkover. Sacramento State was also that was a tougher game for Idaho, but that was one of the games where Kiera Gardner and Hope Hassman both had rougher outings, kind of like against Montana State earlier in the year. Those two conference games are kind of the worst two games, those two for the combined effort of Gardner and Hassman, and Idaho still picked up a 8-point win over Sac State. So look, Idaho is in first place in conference, which means they are set up to be in right now. Idaho controls our destiny to be the number 1 seed in the Big Sky Conference tournament. If that is the case, and Montana State's the only team who could catch Idaho, but because Idaho's only conference losses to Montana State, Montana State's lost to both State of Idaho schools. If Idaho wins out, they're going to be the number 1 seed, which means regardless, because Idaho would have to stumble really out to close the season and pick up a couple losses to be anything but first or second. Your Vandal women are set to have for a fact first round bye. And in the Big Sky Conference tournament schedule, which that's March 7th through March 11th, it's Saturday through Wednesday. Idaho is set to play the winner. They'll play, obviously, a team who's playing in the second round, but they're set to play on Sunday, have the day off to watch whoever their opponents could be play on Monday. And then Idaho would be set to play semis on that Tuesday and maybe championship on that Wednesday. Pretty damn good place to be for Idaho. For the 2 games Marten talked about, Idaho State is a good team. Idaho State they're going to get a first round bye in the Big Sky Conference tournament. The Lady Bengals sit at 10-4 in conference play, tied with Northern Colorado for that 3-4 spot right now. And then there's just no other team below Idaho State with a winning record in Big Sky Conference play. So obviously top heavy conference. But look, Weber State probably gave Idaho the best shot Weber State's going to give anyone the entire year, and Idaho still won relatively comfortably. Sometimes teams play up. I don't think Idaho played down. I watched a good amount of that Weber State game. Weber State, they just hit like 66% threes in the first half. They were cast and they went in, and that did not persist for the rest of the game. But this is an example of we talk about this in football all the time. Good teams do win ugly. Now, at times, this was not an ugly win. This was an easy win, but considering how bad Weber State was, if you're watching the first half, you could been a little bit nervous. But picking up that dub over Idaho State, man, this team is really cruising. And Marten did hit on this, but there's just not one player to stop for Idaho. It's a deep team. Mm-hmm. You look at that Idaho State game, Lorena Barbosa, probably her best offensive game of the year with 15 points, but then Dos Santos with 14 as well. That's 29 out of your center spot, plus eight rebounds apiece. So 29 and 16 out of your center spot. That's pretty goddamn tough to handle. And we've already really exhaustively through our season coverage talked about how Idaho on the wing, look, their starters are strong. Not only Hassman Gardner, but Uriarte and Anna Pinheiro, who will both of those players. They're not double figure every day, but they're reliably getting double figure with scoring regularity. But then also like Anna B off the bench. She had a rougher game against Idaho State, but she scored double figures more than a few times this year. So I've hard to feel better about the women's team than you could right now. So the final 3, again, Idaho's in the driver's seat. They do not have any of the 3 teams with winning records left at home. There is the Northern Colorado NAU trip to close the season, but those are going to be at home. Those are at home for Idaho, right? Yeah, those are home games. So damn, I don't know how to feel better about the women's team, man. They're absolutely cooking, and I really hope that, the attendance last time in Moscow was pretty goddamn good for the Montana schools. Fingers crossed we can have similar attendance in the games this weekend. I'll be there on Saturday for sure.
Very small stat correction. Northern Arizona is on the road, Brian. Northern Colorado, they are back on board. Northern Arizona,
got that weird flip.
That weird flip of, they're gone Thursday, come back Saturday. Anyways, Vandals women ending the year with 4 out of 5 games at home. That game at Northern Arizona is the only time they have to leave Moscow, or realistically the state of Idaho for quite some time. Brian, the men though, sure wanted to make it interesting about this King Spud bit for, weeks and weeks and weeks until the game actually got here.
Before we actually talk about the men, I just want to acknowledge one, support the show, patreon.com/Tubbs the Club for the best place to talk Idaho sports online, bar none, costs less than a cup of coffee a month, guys. And if you want to talk Idaho sports, there's nowhere else to go. So if you're not a member already, I don't know what's wrong with you, but patreon.com/Tubbs the Club. Second, Dallas, we even talk about the men. We just acknowledge finally having King Spud. Big deal. It's a bigger deal when Idaho's lost all the other trophies this last year. And there was also a bit of suspense here. I mean, look, the women took care of their business. Both times they swept Idaho State, a good Idaho State team. Women swept them. So like the Idaho women did everything they could here. The men shit their pants in Pocatello, a game they should have won, were in control of until back then. The men did what they can do sometimes, settled for shitty threes and lost the game.
Shut themselves right out of that game.
Yeah, they shit the bed against Weber State too. I mean, I have sometimes joked about this team as being like, okay, look, they're 500. 500 is all over the place. This is not the women's team. 500 ball is you look great one moment, you look terrible the next. That happens over the course of individual games too. Joke for me is always like, okay, based off how they start, if they start poorly, you can say, okay, at least I know they're shitting the bed the first half. Second half should be fine. And with the inverse stuff, they start strong. Like, okay, they're going to shit their pants second half. All right. Yeah. Idaho chose to average the 2 games out this week, and Idaho just shit the bed every moment they possibly could have against Weber State. Came out unbelievably slow offensively, but balanced that by playing terrible defense. This Weber game was essentially an embarrassment in Moscow. As I have never felt worse about an Alex Pribble team than I did watching our men. I know the final score is 11 points against Weber State. This was not an 11-point game. For a gigantic amount in this game, it was 20 plus.
It was 38-13 at the final media timeout of the first half.
Yeah, absolutely atrocious. Idaho had no answer for Big Sky leading scorer Tajan, I don't know how to say his name. Sane, number 3, scored 29 points on 10 of 18 shooting. But then what did Idaho do offensively? They did move Isaiah Brickner into the starting lineup, which I think is a big deal. But the other end of that is, hey, what happened? Idaho pulled Biko Johnson out of the starting lineup. And in both of these games, Biko Johnson played an average of 17 minutes. Johnson has had a handful of rough games, and this did seem like a message that not only like, hey, if you're not contributing offensively, you have to do something on the defensive end, which Biko had absolutely not been doing through this run. But really, Brickner and Robry were the only people who contributed that well against Weber. Jackson Rasmussen, 6 points, going 2 of 11. He had a lot of good looks close to the basket. Just couldn't convert them. The looks close to the basket for Rasmussen against Weber, those were those like freshman moments. It's like, okay, like he's getting good shots here. Settling for 5 threes, going over 5 threes for Rasmussen. Not my favorite thing, but otherwise, you get 18 off of Isaiah Brickner, who looked like the only guy who could really move the needle offensively against Weber. Colton Mitchell, 1 of 6 for 8 points. Biko Johnson, 8 points off the bench. 3 of 5 shooting, but look, Vandals shot 30% from 3, around their average, and allowed Weber to shoot 53% from 3. And this was not Weber hitting a bunch of contested shots. Weber was getting open shots. The Idaho just was terrible on both ends of the floor. The end. Now against ISU, completely different. Idaho just beat the shit out of Idaho State from start to finish. Now, good news. The Bengals have lost like 9 or 10 in a row. And Idaho at the moment looked like if you're going to turn your season around against someone, it's going to be Idaho. Yeah, Idaho State didn't do that. They're still in free fall this season. That 99-69 win, nice for the 69, but getting 99, Idaho had a far better offensive output. Jackson Rasmussen, one of his best offensive games, going 21 points, 9 of 16 from the field. Did make three threes, but he was also 6 of 9 from twos. So him finishing close to the basket is kind of what I value the most out of Rasmussen. Brody Robry goes over 1,000 career points when he puts up 10 points, 7 rebounds as well. Colton Mitchell, rebound game, 18 points, 7 to 10 for the field. Then Brickner, he scored 17. So Brickner is going to be in the starting lineup from now on. He has easily been the best pure shot creator for this Vandal team and something they needed. Biko Johnson was a starter this game. Like I said, he only played 16 minutes this game. Biko Johnson and Jack Payne played significantly less these last 2 games. That has to feel like a message from Pribble about the intersection of offensive output. If you're not doing it that well, you better be holding your end up on the defensive end. Now, I will say I really do like the starting lineup Idaho has with 3 ball handlers in Brickner, Colton Mitchell, and Biko Johnson. I feel like that has to be the right answer for this Vandal team. They're not going to win games by locking teams down defensively. So the fact of those 3 plus Rasmussen, the starting lineup, there can be some size issues, but it's not actually that big a deal in the Big Sky. Yes, I like ball handlers. Thank you, Dallas. But I like that starting lineup. It does, I will say, it means you're not getting a ton. You're just not going to get much off the bench production wise if all those 3 are starting. But Brickner has been the most explosive scorer for the Vandals. Now his judgment sometimes is absolutely questionable for sure, but he's earned the starting spot. In spite of what we say about Brickner at times executing questionable judgment, you have to use that same threshold talking about Colton Mitchell and Biko Johnson, who have been every bit as up and down from the guard position as Isaiah Brickner, but Brickner's really bailed Idaho out more than a few times this year. So happy for Brickner to finally get that starting nod for this team. And it was nice to end the skid. The Vandals had lost 5 out of 6 heading into this. Idaho sits on the men's team sits on the season now at, getting lost in my tabs, 6-7 in Big Sky play, 14-12 overall. 14 matches that win total from 2025, Dallas. So it's inexcusable for this team to not finish with at least a few more W's than last season. I think all listeners have been disabused of the notion that Idaho is going to creep up beyond anything like 4-5. 4-5 is the ceiling of where Idaho may finish in conference play and finish as far as seeding purposes. But right now, Idaho's outside that top 5. But there's wiggle room. Like, you got, after Montana at 3, you have Eastern, Northern Colorado, Weber State, and Idaho, who all sit between 7-6 and 6-7. And then Sac with a silent K sitting at 5-8, 1 game outside of that window. So there's a lot of position changes that could take place for Idaho. And of those teams I just talked about, Idaho's going to see Eastern, Northern Colorado, and Sac between now and the end of the season. So the Vandals do control their destiny. They pick up W's. They're going to rise up to the 4 or 5 spot. But the other thing I want to point to is Idaho just has not been able to string a lot of consecutive wins together this year. If we're talking D1, Idaho has strung together back-to-back D1 wins twice this year in the out-of conference, beating North Dakota, then South Dakota State back in December, and then beating Weber State and Sac State back in January. That was before Idaho went on their skid, losing 5 out of 6. So Portland State Thursday on ESPNU, kind of a big deal for Idaho to be on ESPNU in the middle of the week. Portland State's top of the conference right now, though, so that's on the road that in theory is a challenge. However, Portland State doesn't exactly have the most intimidating home environment. But then Sac State on Saturday, Sacramento State's, I think they have 1 total home loss. Like, they have been tough at home, and Sacramento State's been stronger the second half of the season, but they also just lost to NAU, and NAU sucks. So, again, 500 team, buckle up. I still think they got to finish with at least 18-ish wins if we're going to say this season is the baby step forward that we can call a success. Because I got a ton. I like a lot of what's going on with Idaho developmentally. They're objectively better this year than we've seen in 8 years. But I really want this team to not finish a game or so above 500. And the nature of them being as up and down as they are. Right now it feels as likely that Idaho could shit the bed and lose in the first round without a bye of the conference tournament as it is that Idaho could pick up 2 wins or get a bye and pick up a win. So the Vandals have a few days to get a few weeks to get this thing situated. I do think the moving Brickner in a starting lineup could be something that really does shift the chemistry of this team, shift the internal makeup of this team in the direction they need to be, which is we need our best scorers to play together as much as we possibly can. But again, 500 basketball, man, buckle up.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, that's again, as was discussed just earlier, as was discussed last week, Idaho State is in a Clausian free fall at the moment, and they are absolute dog shit. But man, that's the polarity of a 500 basketball team is you get your pants pulled down in front of everyone by Weber State, and then I mean that. Idaho could have realistically walked the entire second half and still beat Idaho State. Like hopefully we will see again some of these pieces develop and grow and maybe again progress has not been I think as fast as anybody had wanted, but again they are getting better every year under Pribble. It was digging them out of being one of the 10 worst serious true top 10 Vandal basketball squad that. They have made the moves. I, for one, am really excited about Isaiah Brickner. I really hope that this works out. He's played less than half the minutes of some of the guys on the team, but his shooting numbers are far and away the best on the team, Brian. You give him 100 3-point shots, and all he's got to do is hit about 20 of them, and he's made more threes than anybody else this year and at a significantly better percentage. So nice to get a little bit of a spark there when – again, the guard play has really struggled in the last few weeks.
No, and you're right. Idaho in Big Sky play has 4 players scoring between 14.3 points a game and 12.8. It's the 4 that you would brain dead assume, right? Colton Mitchell, Biko Johnson, Isaiah Brickner, and Jackson Rasmussen. Brickner's at 14 in conference, but like you said, he has played far fewer minutes than all of those other dudes. So he's been easily the most efficient scorer at the guard position for Idaho. I really, again, and part of what I like about Brickner is he does look to put the ball on the floor first. He does look to get into the paint and make things happen first. Most of the threes that Brickner shoots are the type of threes I want to see from Vandals, which are open or off of kickouts or both. I will tell you, 1% concerned at least that the 3 shooting we saw from Idaho against Idaho State. Well, okay, here's what I'm not scared about. Oh, it's obviously a mirage. They shot 48% against the Bengals. That's not this is not a great 3 shooting team. They are a streaky 3 shooting team. And when they're hitting, they can be devastating offensively. But most of the time, this Idaho team does not hit remotely close to that for almost the entire season. This Vandal team has been the worst 3 shooting team in the Big Sky. And even off of that big night against Idaho State, they're still bottom 3 in the conference. So, hey, not the worst anymore, but barely above Portland State and Idaho State, who are shitty 3 shooting teams. So that's who this Idaho team is when they take bad shots. I'm a little concerned that the lesson the players will learn, not that Alex Pribble is going to learn. I know that's not a lesson he's going to learn. I am concerned that the Vandals are going to think like, oh, okay, now we can relax into being 3 first. And Idaho has got to put pressure on the defense to get open threes. This is just not a collection of 4 or 5 Stephen Currys.
Yeah, Brian, they still shot 39% from beyond the arc this weekend, which is a much better number than they've had. But you factor in this great game where they hit almost half of them. Well, they had 9 for 30 against Weber State the previous night. So just hopefully they understand, stop living and mostly dying by the 3 ball. Get inside, get a little bit of pressure, take the 3 when it's the right shot, the open shot, rather than just settling for hucking it up and praying. So
no, because when they put pressure on the defense, they have weapons. But guys like Colton Mitchell, they're more effective if we can get the defense to sink and they get catch and shoot, or they get to attack the defense while the defense is reeling a little bit. If Idaho had Brickner is easily the best off the dribble scorer. If Biko Johnson and Mitchell were able to be as effective off the dribble as Brickner, we wouldn't be talking about Idaho the way they were. Those 2 guys can cause problems for the defense, but they're absolutely better set up to have the defense kind of reeling instead of they need the defense on their heels. They need to find a way to, those two need to get kind of downhill. Brickner doesn't, like, he can just get good looks. But the way that works for Idaho is get pressure inside one way or another, get your kickouts, and also you got to get defensive stops so that you can get guys like Biko and Mitchell in transition.
Brian, we are over the hour mark. Coming up for the Vandals, Portland's Taint on ESPNU Thursday night, going up against the top team in the conference. Again, ESPNU 6 o'clock Pacific, that one. And then Saturday at Sacramento State. Vandal men do come home for February 26th and 28th versus Northern Arizona and Northern Colorado before ending the season at Eastern Washington. So while the women get 4 of 5 games at home, the Vandal men only have February 26th and February 28th as their final home games before the Big Sky Conference tournament.
I do want to give one correction. I said Sac State is playing better, which is true as a whole, but the Hornets are reeling on a 3-game losing streak. Now, 2 of those were on the road, and they played Portland State very tight in Sacramento, and this game will be in Sacramento. But again, Sac with a silent K, part of their playing better is they're just not getting their ass kicked every week.
Yeah, that tends to make things look a little bit better. Brian, I think it's time for Marten and for all of us here at Tubs at the Club. V's up. And go Vandals.
Go Vandals.